Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service through a special partnership with Alaska Public Media that allows us to bring you this broadcast each day. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide, you can always go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence, its webpage, and you can come up to a map of the continental U.S., which shows Hawaii and Alaska on the lower left. It's a point-and-click interactive map that allows you to get forecast, watches, warnings, advisories, and so much more weather information. We have a lot going on across the nation's midsection across the continental U.S. Severe thunderstorm watches for portions of Virginia and the Carolinas. Heat advisories from portions of the southeast and deep south up through the plains into eastern Montana, even excessive heat watch for southwest Minnesota, eastern Dakotas. Back to the west, we have red flag warnings across Utah, Nevada, northwest Arizona, high wind warnings too. And then in the northern Rockies, you probably heard about in recent days all of the flooding that's occurred in the Yellowstone region there in northwest Wyoming. Combination of heavy rainfall with rapid snowmelt from the high elevations, creating record floods that shut down Yellowstone National Park. So quite an event there. Otherwise, for Alaska, we are anticipating south central areas to cool down a bit here over the weekend, and even a chance of some wetting. Not enough to alleviate the really dry conditions, but some wetting at least. Scattered showers, areas of rain along the immediate Gulf Coast. And further north, the fire danger stays high, especially up through the east central parts of the state. Just north of Fairbanks on over towards Stevens Village and Fort Yukon is where the greatest fire danger will be. And then we throw in the threat, there are going to be some scattered showers up there too. They're not going to be producing tons of rain, but there's that threat of isolated thunderstorms that could ignite fires through lightning strikes there in the interior as we go through this weekend. And then coming up at the end of this segment, I will show you the latest 30-day temperature and precipitation outlook for the month of July. Well, looking at what's going on, we'll start out way in the north, New Exit. Partly cloudy, a relatively warm day for you up there with 57 degrees. Coolest temperatures have been along the northwest coast from around Utqiagvik down through Wainwright to Point Hope. Those areas have remained in the 30s with lower cloud cover. Further south, though, into the southwest interior, Mountain Village continues to see that smoky haze from the fires that are occurring across the southwest interior, and there's even a little bit of a buildup there, cumulus buildup that would indicate a shower or perhaps even a developing thunderstorm with temperatures there this afternoon, early afternoon in the mid-50s. Further southeast as we go down across the Alaska Peninsula to Kodiak Island. Kodiak is in the vicinity of an occluded front that's brought in some lower cloud cover and some sprinkles, lighter showers, temperatures there in the mid-50s. And then as we jump across the Gulf, the Panhandle's enjoyed a great afternoon. A lot of sunshine there, temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Wrangell reporting sunny skies prior to 2 p.m. and 66 degrees. A look at the fire danger that we're anticipating here on Saturday. It's going to be focused, the areas of orange, very high, extreme red. The greatest threat is up there through the middle upper Yukon Valley, south of the Brooks Range, north of the Alaska Range. But we still also have areas of very high fire danger in through the Mat-Su Valley as well as the Copper River Basin. So just keep that in mind. It's still very dry in many areas of the state, even though some cloud cover and some lighter showers have pushed in and helped, and it certainly helped conditions in the southwest part of the state. Fire danger is still very high in portions of the state, east central areas, so be very cautious if you're going to be out camping and recreating or doing any type of thing outside that could cause a spark. Looking at the satellite imagery, the main weather player is going to be this low pressure system. It's a very broad circulation center just north of Dutch Harbor on Alaska. And this feature has an occluded front moving right up into the southwest interior now in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, and it's going to continue to work its way slowly eastward. The low will pass just south of Kodiak Island by Sunday afternoon. and we're going to see that occluded front weaken, but spread moisture further east along the Gulf Coast. Eventually, those of you in the Panhandle, tomorrow Saturday will be the still a pretty good weekend day to get out and enjoy things, because wetter conditions, cooler conditions are coming Sunday into early next week. And as I mentioned earlier, up there along the Arctic coast, at least temperatures are not quite as cold in the eastern end, but the northwest coast is seeing some low cloudiness, patchy fog, and temperatures only in the 30s. So there's that low this afternoon. By late tonight, early Saturday morning, the low will be nearing the tip there of the Alaska Peninsula. It's then going to push out into the North Pacific as it works its way eastward on Saturday afternoon. The occluded front just kind of bows ahead and weakens as it nudges up toward the Kenai Peninsula and a little further up along the west side of the Alaska Range. Meanwhile, in the interior, weak low pressure lagging there up through the Yukon Flats with scattered showers and isolated storms. Still a fair amount of smoke, hazy smoke there across the southwest and central interior from those ongoing wildfires. And on Sunday, the low is expected to be just southwest of Kodiak Island, with the trough extending out into the Gulf and some rain beginning to push up, mainly light rain or light rain showers, pushing into the Panhandle with cloudier skies. Further north, a continuation of scattered showers and isolated storms up through the central and eastern interior. Looking at temperatures, lows tonight, south central areas, Panhandle, 40s to near 50. Temperatures still some 60s to near 70 in the interior inner channels there, the Panhandle, like Juneau on up toward Skagway. Also, could see isolated 70-degree reading up there toward Glen Allen or even up upper Mat-Su Valley. Otherwise, 60s as the clouds will be thickening, not as sunny as what we've seen. Temperatures again in the 40s to lower 50s. Anchorage Bowl, lower 50s there with the cloud cover Sunday morning. And then we could see a few very light shower sprinkles, nothing enough to alleviate the dry conditions up through the Mat-Su Valley or Anchorage Bowl. Elsewhere, showers overspread the Panhandle with temperatures confined to the upper 50s to low 60s with the rain and cloud cover. Across the Yukon Valley, lows tonight 40s to around 50. Coolest readings near or below freezing up there. Utqiagvik down toward Point Hope could see readings near or a bit below freezing. 60s to some lower 70s central eastern Yukon Valley, especially south of the Brooks Range. Highs, though, only near 40 there along the Arctic coast. And then for Sunday morning, we have lows again getting down into the 40s to near 50 there across the Yukon Valley, but 30s outer Seward coast and along the northwest and Arctic coast. And Sunday afternoon readings should generally be back up in the 60s with a few lower 70s, say at like Fairbanks or Fort Yukon, with the possibility of an isolated thunderstorm popping up there with some of the scattered showers. And then Saturday morning across the southwest interior, lows generally in the 40s. There could be a few readings near 50 as you work your way up the Yukon Valley. Otherwise, lower mid-40s out along the Alaska Peninsula back into the Aleutians. Temperatures Saturday afternoon remain cool. Dillingham, King Salmon, those areas there only in the lower 50s with cloud cover and some showers. Where the clouds are thinner, you get a few peaks of sun. You could see temperatures above 60 as you get up toward the middle Yukon Valley or upper Kuskokwim. And then by Sunday morning, lows will generally be again in the 40s across much of the region. And then Sunday afternoon, we do expect temperatures as you get up toward Bethel, Anayak, Emanok, on up the Yukon River into the 60s and eventually approaching 70 as you get up toward Ruby and further upriver. A look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for June 23rd through the 27th. So this is after we get past the solstice, which is on Tuesday next week. So middle and latter part of next week, we expect the ridge to rebuild and create above normal temperatures there through south central, centered on the Kenai Peninsula around the Cook Inlet, including the Anchorage Bowl, could push temperatures in the 70s to maybe even near 80 degrees for a couple of days. Precipitation is going to stay below normal across the south and southeast parts of the state, a little above normal, especially north of the Yukon, north and west of the Yukon River. And then let's take a look at the latest temperature forecast 30-day outlook for July, provided by the Climate Prediction Center of the National Weather Service. And we expect temperatures to average above normal on the west side of the state, centered on the southwest, including Dillingham and Kodiak, the Alaska Peninsula, with temperatures likely averaging below normal across especially the southern Panhandle. And then precipitation is forecast to average a bit above normal especially in the northwest, and then down through the Panhandle. But the southwest part of the state has an equal chance of seeing near, above, or below normal precipitation. So no real strong signature to say it's going to be exceptionally dry or exceptionally wet in the southwest. But nevertheless, Southwest has enjoyed a very warm stretch of weather this spring and summer.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's now time for your aviation weather, and if you do have a flight planned this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, the main weather feature we're watching is a broad circulation around low pressure that will be moving from the eastern Aleutians to just south of the Alaska Peninsula and southwest of Kodiak Island by Sunday afternoon. We continue to see the wildfires burning across the southwest and central interior, so if you're doing any long distance flights through those areas, you're picking up the smoke and soot. Flying through that smoke creates this smudge on the fuselage and the leading edge of your wings, so you want to keep that clean because that builds up over a period of time, and we certainly have plenty of smoke in areas across parts of the interior. Otherwise, much of the mainland will see VFR conditions Saturday morning, but again, there will be areas of smoke, not just near the surface, but aloft. Pretty widespread IFR conditions out over the open waters of the Gulf, off the Panhandle there and off the Kenai. Also across areas of the central Bering down toward the central Aleutians, and then just off of the Arctic coast. Saturday afternoon, there could be some isolated, widely scattered thunderstorms across the central and eastern interior, especially south side of the Brooks Range, Yukon Flats, down toward the 40-mile Gold Country. We continue to see IFR conditions in the Arctic Ocean there north of the Arctic coast and also out over the Gulf. Same thing Sunday morning. Widespread VFR conditions anticipated in the mainland, but again, there'll be areas of near surface and smoke aloft, especially across the southwest and central portions of the interior. Widespread IFR expected out over the central western Bering into the western Aleutians. And Sunday afternoon, we could see some isolated thunderstorms popping up across the central interior, especially north of the Alaska Range. And generally, VFR conditions expected, though. Again, areas of smoke will be possible. And look for IFR conditions off portions of the Panhandle and then back out toward the western Bering Sea. Anatuvik Pass should generally see VFR conditions, but you could see a thunderstorm pop up there afternoon, evening, especially as you go fly south of the south entrance toward, say, Yukon Flats or the Yukon River. Same thing, Adigan Pass, VFR conditions, but you'll see some cumulus buildups and isolated storms, especially as you fly south toward the Yukon River. Lake Clark and Merrill, generally VFR conditions are anticipated. And as we go up through the Alaska Range, generally VFR conditions are anticipated at Rainy Pass as well as Windy Pass, extending eastward through Isabel. But as you fly north of the Alaska Range, again, you could encounter some cumulus buildups and isolated storms. Mentasta Pass, VFR with, again, isolated storms there as you fly north. Tanana Valley, especially up toward the 40-mile Gold Country. Tanita Pass should generally hold on to VFR conditions, and Portage Pass will see MVFR conditions in the morning toward the east entrance out over Prince William Sound, but otherwise, length of the pass should be VFR, especially later morning and afternoon. Chilkoot and White will hang on to VFR conditions during the day Saturday. And looking at the freezing levels, they are highest out across the east side of the state through the Alcan border at or above 8,000 feet into northwest Canada, lowering to below 4,000 feet as you get up there toward the Arctic Ocean north of Utqiagvik, and then out over the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Freezing levels fall below 4,000 feet in the vicinity of that broad low-pressure circulation that extends aloft. And then icing potential exists 8,000 to 15,000 feet, Alaska Peninsula, out across the southwest 10,000 to 16,000 feet, but again, this is isolated, and then up to the north, perhaps 8 to 14,000 feet, with some isolated to scattered thunderstorms possible there in the interior, especially around the Yukon Flats. Jet stream level winds strongest upwards to 100 knots North Pacific south of the Gulf. We see that upper level 30,000 foot circulation of low pressure there out over the western tip of the Alaska Peninsula. It's a vertically stacked system coming down 9,000 feet. And then as we get to 3,000 feet, there will be some winds out of the north there to 35 knots there over the central Aleutians, and perhaps a little bit of wind there around Lake Iliamna. And turbulence, moderate turbulence, will be possible there through the central chain on the Aleutians on the backside of that low surface to 3,000 feet. And then there could be a little bit of bump there around Lake Iliamna westward between the surface and 4,000 feet there on the west arm of the Alaska Range. So that does it for your aviation outlook. Again, check the latest forecast and conditions, and if you are able to get out, have a safe flight.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind.
Right.
It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where
Right.
the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 micron.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit,
Right.
and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters and where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or a succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, you got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the Day-Night Band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We've got all this darkness. The Day-Night Band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again, kind of a horseshoe shape, showing that active fire front down there. And then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rim fire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year.
Right.
That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder. See you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and let's look at the sea ice edge. We're almost to the solstice. That occurs this coming Tuesday. And the ice continues to melt off there now and through the lower Chukchi Sea. We still have areas of ice lingering in through Kotzebue Sound, north side of the Seward Peninsula, and on the east side of St. Lawrence Island. And as we look out along the Arctic coast to Utqiagvik eastward to Kaktovik, we're still seeing ice in place, but again, we'll continue to expect more in the way of some melting here as we go through the next few weeks. Looking at the winds across the southeast panhandle, the inner channels, see 15 knot south winds that could gust as high as 30-35 knots there in Lynn Canal with waves of 3 to 4 feet. Elsewhere, winds in the inner channels are out of the southwest or northwest there at 15 knots, Petersburg down toward Ketchikan with waves of a few feet. The outer Gulf Coast, winds will be out of the west-northwest, 10 to 20 knots with waves of 6 to 7 feet, though winds more out of the south-southwest Yakutat westward with 5 to 6 foot waves. Sunday, inner channels will see southerly winds 10 to 15 knots, waves running 2 to 3 feet. The outer coast winds will be generally out of the south-southwest from 15 to 20 knots and waves 6 to 7 feet. Across the northwestern Gulf, including Cook Inlet, winds will be northeast to north along the upper and middle Cook Inlet at 10 to 15 knots with a few foot waves. Easterly winds at the entrance to Cook Inlet at 20 knots with waves of 5 feet. And generally southerly winds 15 knots with 5-6 foot waves offshore of the Kenai Peninsula and Kodiak. On Sunday, Prince William Sound's winds will be southeasterly 15 knots, waves a few feet. Easterly winds off the Kenai to 15 knots as well as at the entrance of Cook Inlet. And variable winds up there on the north end of the Cook Inlet, especially north of Kenai, with waves only a couple of feet there. Now, across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island on Saturday, there is a low-pressure circulation that will be working its way centered near Cold Bay Sand Point, working its way eastward and re-emerging back into the North Pacific. Ahead of it, south winds 15 knots. Waves as high as 8 to 9 feet as you get way out there in the open waters of the North Pacific. Easterly winds 15 knots, Bristol Bay down to north of Cold Bay with waves a few feet. And that low pressure circulation continues on Sunday to be located just southwest of Kodiak Island. Winds will be out of the northeast to north 10 to 15 knots, Bristol Bay and through the lower Bering side of the peninsula, and northwesterly south of Sandpoint to 15 knots, but southeasterly there off of Kodiak Island with waves running 5-6 feet. The eastern and central Aleutians on Saturday will see northwesterly winds 20 to 25 knots, waves 7 to 9 feet on the North Pacific side, 4 to 7 feet on the Bering side, and then on Sunday, winds will generally be northwest to west, 15 to 20 knots across the eastern and central Aleutians, with waves of 4 to 6 feet on the North Pacific side and 4 to 5 feet on the Bering side. Across the west side of the state, the eastern Bering's winds will generally have a north or northeasterly component at 10 to 15 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet in the open waters. Norton Sound 10-knot northerly winds, 2-foot waves, and on Sunday, look for those winds to be a bit more variable, especially off of Nunavik Island and St. Paul and St. George. Variable winds, 10 knots, waves a couple of feet, but look for onshore flow in through Norton Sound around only 5 knots. And then across the Arctic coast, winds will be northeasterly, 15 knots there at Prudhoe Bay and Kaktovik. But further west, winds try to be more offshore there from Wainwright down through Cape Lisburne and out of Kotzebue Sound at 10 to 15 knots with waves where there is open water a couple of feet. For Sunday, winds will generally be out of the northeast to east across the Arctic and northwest coast, 10 to 15 knots. Where there are openings in the ice, waves 2 to 3 feet. Winds will turn more southerly through the lower Chukchi Sea just north of the Bering Strait at 10 to 15 knots, and then northwesterly at 10 knots on the north side of Nunavik Island with waves of 2 feet. For Saturday afternoon, low pressure will be centered there on the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, working its way eastward into the North Pacific and being located just southwest of Kodiak Island by Sunday. And a weakening wrapped around occluded front will continue to just diminish to a trough by the time we get into Sunday. Low pressure southwest of Kodiak Island. And we have that approaching trough spreading more clouds and areas of light rain and light rain showers into the Panhandle. So that wraps up our show for tonight, and thank you for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.